My darling philosophers, welcome to our daily devotional reading. Let's turn inward by closing our eyes, preparing ourselves to receive that which wants to be given to us, to feed us spiritually, our daily bread. The voice from within, the voice that knows the stillness, knows the darkness, knows the light. The one who is and was and is becoming and who will always be. The voice within. You and me, us, together, one. Reading Plato. I made these and similar observations, but Protagoras would not distinctly say which he would do. Whereupon Alcibiades turned to Callias and said, "Do you think, Callias, that Protagoras is fair in refusing to say whether he will or will not answer? For I certainly think that he is unfair. He ought either to proceed with the argument or distinctly refuse to proceed, that we may know his intention. And then Socrates will be able to discourse with someone else, and the rest of the company will be free to talk with one another." Make your intention clear, it's always important. I think that Protagoras was really made ashamed by these words of Alcibiades, and when the prayers of Callias and the company were superadded, he was at last induced to argue and said that I might ask and he would answer. So I said, "Do not imagine, Protagoras, that I have any other interest in asking questions of you, but that of clearing up my own difficulties. For I think that Homer was very right in saying that when two go together, one sees before the other. For all men who have a companion are readier in deed, word, or thought. But if a man sees a thing when he is alone, he goes about straightway seeking until he finds someone to whom he may show his discoveries, and who may confirm him in them. And I would rather hold discourse with you than with anyone, because I think that no man has a better understanding of most things, which a good man may be expected to understand, and particular of virtue. For who is there but you, who not only claim to be a good man and a gentleman, for many others, and yet have not the power of making others good? Whereas you are not only good yourself, but also the cause of goodness in others. Moreover, such confidence have you in yourself that although other sophists conceal their profession, you proclaim in the face of Greece that you are a sophist or teacher of virtue and education. and are the first to demand it pay in return. How then can I do otherwise than invite you to examination of these subjects, and ask questions and consult with you? The other translation has, how could I not solicit your help? I must indeed. And I should like once more to have my memory refreshed by you about the questions which I was asking you at first, and also to have your help in considering them. The other translation is a bit different also in meaning. Then, after going back to the first questions, then I want to proceed together to take a good hard look at some other questions, the other translation says. If I'm not mistaken, the question was this: are wisdom and temperance and courage and justice and holiness 5 names of the same thing? Or has each of the names a separate underlying essence and corresponding thing having a peculiar function, no one of them being like any other of them? And you replied that the 5 names were not the names of the same thing, but that each of them had a separate object, and that all these objects were parts of virtue, not in the same way that the parts of gold are like each other, and the whole of which they are parts, but as the parts of the face are unlike the whole of which they are parts, and one another, and have each of them a distinct function. I should like to know whether this is still your opinion. Yes, Socrates, it is. And if not, I would ask you to define your meaning, and I shall not take you to task if you now make a different statement, for I dare say that you may have said what you did only in order to make trial of me, to test me. I answer, Socrates, he said, that all these qualities are parts of virtue, and that 4 out of the 5 are to some extent similar, and that the 5th of them, which is courage, is very different from the other 4, as I prove in this way. You may observe that many men are utterly unrighteous, unholy, intemperate, ignorant, who are nevertheless remarkable for their courage. I have to wonder if that's a sting at Socrates for being a bit of a courageous fool. Courageous fool, that's a nice turn of phrase. Stop, I said. I should like to think about that. When you speak of brave men, do you mean the confident or any other sort of nature? Yes, he said, I mean the impetus, ready to go at that which others are afraid to approach. Fools rush in. In the next place, you would affirm virtue to be a good thing. Okay, it's again Socrates. In the next place, you would affirm virtue to be a good thing, of which good thing you assert yourself to be a teacher. Yes, he said, I should say the best of all things if I am in my right mind. And is it partly good and partly bad? I said, or wholly good? Wholly good. And in the highest degree. Tell me then, who are they who have confidence when diving into a well? I should say the divers. And the reason of this is that they have knowledge. Yes, that is the reason. And who have confidence when fighting on horseback? The skilled horseman or the unskilled? The skilled. And who when fighting with light shields? The peltast or the non-peltast? but peltasts, and that is true of all things, he said, if that is your point. Those who have knowledge are more confident than those who have no knowledge, and they are more confident after they have learned than before. And have you not seen persons utterly ignorant, I said, of these things, and yet confident about them? Yes, he said, I have seen such persons far too confident. And are not these confident persons also courageous? In that case, he replied, courage would be a base thing, for the men of whom we were speaking are surely madmen. Then who are the courageous? Are they not the confident? Yes, he said, to that statement I adhere. And those, I said, who are thus confident without knowledge are really not courageous, but mad. And in that case, the wisest are also the most confident, and being the most confident are also the bravest. And upon that view again, wisdom will be courage. Nay, Socrates, he replied, you are mistaken in your remembrance of what was said by me. When you asked me, I certainly did say that the courageous are the confident, but I was never asked whether the confident are the courageous. If you had asked me, I should have answered, not all of them. And what I did answer you have not proved to be false, although you proceeded to show that those who have knowledge are more courageous than they were before they had knowledge, and more courageous than others who have no knowledge, and were then led on to think that courage is the same as wisdom. But in this way of arguing, you might come to imagine that strength is wisdom. You might begin by asking whether the strong are able, and I should say yes, and then whether those who know how to wrestle are not more able to wrestle than those who do not know how to wrestle, and more able after than before they had learned, and I should assent. And when I had admitted this, you might use my admissions in such a way as to prove that upon my view, wisdom is strength, whereas in the case I should not have admitted, any more than in the other, that the able are strong, although I have admitted that the strong are able. For there is a difference between ability and strength. The former is given by knowledge as well as by madness or rage. But strength comes from nature and a healthy state of the body. And in like manner I say of confidence and courage that they are not the same, and I agree that the courageous are confident, but not all the confident courageous. For confidence may be given to men by art, and also, like ability, by madness and rage. But courage comes to them from nature and the healthy state of the soul. I think that's really beautifully said. I really like Protagoras. I said, you would admit, Protagoras, that some men live well and others ill. He assented. And do you think that a man lives well who lives in pain and grief? He does not. And if he lives pleasantly to the end of his life, will he not in that case have lived well? He will. Then to live pleasantly is a good, and to live unpleasantly an evil. Yes, he said, if the pleasure be good and honorable. And do you, Protagoras, like the rest of the world, call some pleasant things evil and some painful things good? For I am rather disposed to say that things are good insofar as they are pleasant, if they have no consequence of another sort, and insofar as they are painful, they are bad, if they have no consequence of another sort. I do not know, Socrates, he said. whether I can venture to assert that the unqualified manner that the pleasant is good and the painful the evil. Having regard not only to my present answer, but also to the whole of my life, I shall be safer if I am not mistaken in saying that there are some pleasant things which are not good, and that there are some painful things which are good, and some which are not good, and that there are some which are neither good nor evil. And you would call pleasant, I said, the things which participate in pleasure or create pleasure. Certainly, he said. Then my meaning is that insofar as they are pleasant, they are good, and my question would imply that pleasure is a good in itself. According to your favorite mode of speech, Socrates, let us reflect about this, he said, and if the reflection is to the point and the result proves that pleasure and good are really the same, then we will agree, but if not, then we will argue. It's almost the same letters, I only notice it now. And would you wish to begin the inquiry? I said, or shall I begin? You ought to take the lead, he said, for you are the author of the discussion. May I employ an illustration? I said. Suppose someone who is inquiring into the health or some otherly body quality of another. He looks at his face and at his tips of his fingers, and then he says, "Uncover your chest and back to me that I may have a better view." That is the sort of thing which I desire in this speculation. Having seen that your opinion is about good and pleasure, I am minded to say to you, uncover your mind to me, Protagoras, and reveal your opinion about knowledge, that I may know whether you agree with the rest of the world. That is so sexy. Uncover your mind to me and reveal your opinion. Now the rest of the world are of the opinion that knowledge is a principle not of strength or of rule or of command. The notion is that a man may have knowledge, and yet that the knowledge which is in him may be overmastered by anger or pleasure or pain or love, or perhaps by fear, just as if knowledge were a slave and might be dragged about anyhow. Now, is that your view, or do you think that knowledge is a noble and commanding thing, which cannot be overcome and will not allow a man, if he only knows the difference of good and evil, to do anything which is contrary to knowledge, but that wisdom will have strength to help him? I agree with you, Socrates, said Protagoras, and not only so, but I, above all other men, am bound to say that wisdom and knowledge are the highest of human things. Sophia and Episteme. I, above all other people, am bound to say that wisdom and knowledge are the highest of human things. Good, I said, and true. But are you aware that the majority of the world are of another mind, and that men are commonly supposed to know the things which are best, and not to do them when they might? And most persons whom I have asked the reason of this have said that when men act contrary to knowledge, they are overcome by pain or pleasure or some of those affections which I was just now mentioning. Yes, Socrates, he replied. And that is not the only point about which mankind are in error. Thus far, our scripture of the day. I stumbled over the evening there, because I'm recording at 9:30 in the morning. But my habit is to say evening. And the reason why I'm recording at 9:30 in the morning, besides the fact that I'm going out later and I'm not sure if I'll be back on time, is that I have decided to change the way I do things a little bit. When I started this, it was important to me to make it as real as possible. And with that realness, then I thought doing each day on the day as if we were meeting in person, almost with a few hours delay, would make it real. But I think, at least for a while, as an experiment, I'm gonna go another way. And on the days that I'm able to do so, record twice or maybe 3 times, and stick to at least the daily one on the days that I'm pressured for time. As yesterday, I had to record before work because I had to. This moth had to pretend to be a butterfly. It's always a very stressful situation, but I'm apparently not bad at it. I need to find a way to stabilize myself and to figure out what is human and what is divine intervention. And by breaking time a bit, I might be able to do that. What did I write here? So I'm going to record ahead of time now, but I will release only daily. So from my perspective, it will feel as if I'm running ahead. From your perspective, it will seem as if I'm lacking behind. More and more as time goes by. Although there will be a time when I post on 3 days without recording. That is the plan. But I will still take my break in September for other reasons. Sometimes one needs to be unseen completely. And I don't always memorize it, because sometimes the translator says in the back, oh, I've gone a completely different way with the translation. What it actually says is this. And then I'm not sure that I want to memorize that. But today's what he says, like, I have improvised, the text reads, and this I thought, like, okay, that confirms my idea that I should break time a little bit. In governing people and serving heaven, nothing is better than moderation. Only he who is moderate can prepare in advance. He who prepares in advance accumulates a reserve of, I don't know if it's a de or te. It's spelled with a T, but so is the Tao or Tao. A reserve of te, virtue or power. The Tao as it informs things and acts in the world. The Tao as it informs things. He who accumulates a reserve of the te overcomes all obstacles. Few things I'm skipping. This is called having deep roots and a strong stem. Long life and enduring vision. So, that administration being out of the way. I also did some other reading. I did this, and it was a text that spoke to me, but more for a ritual than for, and a ritual for myself. It's and I read from this as well. The man who is said to say that man, whose main thing is to be man, is the measure of all things, ends this reading today with, well, mankind is mistaken in many things. What I did read today, what I think is important. The final one before he starts quoting the text. Protagoras was a sophist, but he was also a philosopher. All the strands of his thoughts are interlinked and based on moderate skepticism. If we cannot be certain about the truth of the matter, then we are justified in arguing either side of the case. We are justified in agnosticism, and we are even justified in denying the possibility of falsehood. It seems likely to me that if more of Protagoras' written work had survived, we would be able to classify him more securely as a coherent and innovative thinker. He does not seem to be denying the existence of the gods, but only our ability to gain certain knowledge of them, which may even be understood as quite a pious statement. I also read interesting things in Hegel, but I don't know if... maybe. The first part about going together to see more reminded me of something that John drew my attention to first. How when we taste something bad, we're such a strange species. We would be like, oh, this tastes bad. Go taste, have a taste. Like, what do you think? So even in those negative experiences, we need others to confirm that our experience is true. It's not that we want the other to experience the bad taste, but we want the confirmation of another that what we are experiencing is true. And that is how humanity learns. That is how we grow. That is how we stay sane, by speaking with others, and it's not necessarily a given that we come to the right conclusions because we agree, but it's more likely that we're not just fooling ourselves. I sometimes say to the people I speak to that so many of the great minds of the past ended in madness. I feel like if they all saw as individuals. I feel if we see collectively, that could save us. I don't know. But how many courageous fools are there willing to play this game? Virtue is the best of all things if we are in our right mind. And I above all other are bound to say that wisdom and knowledge are the highest of human things. Virtue being quite a synonym for wisdom and knowledge from Socrates' perspective. This little looking into what courage is reminded me of the astronaut that Alex had on his show recently. And bravery. And indeed, knowledge makes for no need of bravery. And if you're going to send someone out into space, you want someone with knowledge and not just a courageous fool. But simply stating that there's no need for bravery, because what is asked is knowledge, kind of forgets about the fact that we are agents becoming. We are in the process of becoming. And the first step, at least, the acquiring of knowledge, of skill, that costs the highest bravery possible in many ways. It is easy to say from the other side that bravery is not required. But as long as you're learning, then it does take a form of bravery, faith almost. That is all I have written down. I don't know how to link this. I, above all others, are bound to say that wisdom and knowledge are the highest of human things. How does knowledge of what is real become wisdom? In the sense that we interact with it, we incorporate it in our lives to deepen our humanity. Specifically, say for instance, the idea of multiple universes. How does one what does one do with that? Rebecca and I spoke about that, and because that was one of my suggestions about how if not then could be accounted for, or if not then not, but how is that possible? Anyway, she doesn't like the multiple universe thing, and I think it's because she operates from this necessity. This everything is necessary. Everything is, and I read about necessity too this morning in Hegel. It is when reason does not find necessity in them that it resorts to making this distinction and lowers the truth of the matter to the level of probability in order to bring out the imperfect way in which truth is presented to the consciousness that as yet has no insight into the pure notion. And it does feel almost as if the multiverse thing takes away the necessity thing. But I pointed out to her, and I think it was, I'm not sure who it was, but it was definitely a guest on Alex. I think it was two people. It was the two guys that pointed out the fact that there was a time where it was considered quite a fringe idea that the Earth revolves around the sun, and then the whole Milky Way, and then, like, you know, bigger and bigger and bigger. There's always a next step which is at the boundary of our thought. And they said that the multiverse is for them that's it. That's like the next thing that future generations will probably take as a given. So be it. But even the fact that we live in the Milky Way, how does that affect our lives? Should it affect our lives? When we interact with the one, everything is one. I would think it should. But how does that relate then to the multiverse idea? Is that also one? Kind of like, what is those computers that run like a gazillion different experiments at the same time? Quantum computers, right? I'm not sure. Like the one is running all these multitudes of experiments at the same time. And I have worked with one of the woohoo weirdest, most weird experiments 1 month I did was with working with multiple universes. And it worked. Everything works. Mind playing with itself is the words that because I'm thinking, like, I don't know how it works. If we learn to dive and go down into the well as experienced divers, what will we find? Are we not then like sharpened tools for the mind to know itself? And hence wisdom and knowledge are the greatest goods which we could possibly acquire, which we could become. Sophia herself will guide your way.